Secretary DST, Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Mohanty, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, Dr. Ravi Chandran, former secretaries, eminent members of the scientific fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I must congratulate the recipients of these awards this morning, and I'm sure they must be looking forward to this National Science Day more than any one of us, because they are the ones who will be carrying home the award. But nevertheless, well deserved, and I'm sure you will keep it up even in the years to come. The National Science Day, as we observe every year, in fact, is an occasion for us to reiterate ourselves to the cause and to the goals that we have laid for ourselves. Right from the day, the inspiration came from none less than C.V. Raman, and therefore to commemorate his legacy and also try to live up to that legacy, if not wholly, at least partly, or to the extent that we can do. We've been observing this day since the year 1928. There have been landmarks after that. We got India, after independence, got its first science policy somewhere in 1953. Then, of course, the STI policy, etc., etc. But to cut the long story short, I think the vindication came in 2014. And being students of science, as we learned to speak with a certain amount of evidence, I sometimes feel that India had no dearth of potential, no dearth of capabilities, no dearth of focus of mind. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had someone like C.V. Raman. But after independence, I think what was lacking was prioritization. And prioritization at two levels, at the level of the policy planners, at the level of the political dispensation. And there, precisely, the difference happened with the arrival of someone like Modi. And after 2014, in the last 8 or 9 years, there has been a visible change in the political discourse, and there's an assertive shift of priorities. And as I was saying, we must never give up the habit of talking without evidence. I'm not sure it would have occurred to anybody in this room. If you just look back at the 9 Independence Day addresses that have been delivered by Prime Minister Modi from the ramparts of the Red Fort, you'll find not a single one of these having gone without the mention of a premier scientific initiative or a program which was something unheard of, unparalleled in the history of independence India. Because the Independence Day address is actually a kind of a declaration of intent of the government in place. And there are many other lofty platitudes to be delivered. Just to cite this instance, in his first Independence Day address in 2014, he speaks about cleanliness. The most fundamental issue, which is related to hygiene, related to healthcare, and emphasizes Swachhata primarily, so declaring the intent of his government for the construction of the women toilets, realizing that one of the commonest causes of urinary tract disease in India was lack of toilet facility in the females or inadequate or insufficient facility. Besides, of course, the other diseases like diabetes, etc., where it happens for other reasons. So there was a kind of a sensitive reflection happening. And within 1 year, we had as many as 4 lakh female toilets built across the country in different schools and colleges. Well, I'm saying so because this is often not talked about, often not discussed about, doesn't form a part of the TV discussion, and usually it slips our mind. In 2015, the same Prime Minister in the Independence Day address says, "Start up India, stand up India." I'm not sure how many would have understood. In fact, I also received calls in the evening and said, what does it actually mean? We didn't understand this because before that we just had about 350 startups and nobody knew what is the definition of unicorn. Is it C-O-R-N or C-O-N? You recall, you will realize what I'm saying is the truth, whether we accept it or not. In just 8-9 years, we've gone to 90,000 plus startups. We are number 3 startup ecosystem. We have so many unicorns. It's become such a familiar phrase amongst the common society, even outside the scientific fraternity. In his subsequent Independence Day address, he speaks of digital India. Now just try to look at the Independence Day address contents of the Prime Minister. And digital India soon ends up in digital bank accounts, in the DBT, which later on became handy when money had to be placed in the accounts of those who were suffering from inadequacy during the COVID times. You had the JAM, the Jandhan, Aadhaar, mobile trinity. You had the Gati Shakti. And all this followed that call for digital India. In another Independence Day address, I think it's 2017 or 18, for the first time, the announcement of Gaganyaan was made from the ramparts of Red Fort. It could have been done otherwise also, or it could have just happened through a news story. But realizing the importance of a human being going into the space and raising India's esteem in the world community meant so much for everybody was to be realized by the importance given to it through an announcement, maiden announcement from the Red Fort. In 2020, he talks of digital health mission. And the pandemic was just to strike. But we were prepared, and that's how we got over it. And in 2 subsequent Independence Day addresses, 2021 and 2022, both the addresses make a special mention of deep sea mission, being spearheaded by the Ministry of Earth Sciences. There was a time, not many years ago, when if you did a survey in India, in Delhi at least, and tried to ask the common persons walking along the footpath, where on earth is the Department of Earth Sciences located, I'm sure nobody would be able to tell. Here, Earth Sciences was receiving a mention from the Red Fort, realizing and making people realize in the years to come the immense health hidden inside the seabed, because with the longest sea coast of 7,500 kilometers, which has never been realized in the last 75, is actually going to add value to our economy when we say we are going to forge ahead in the next 25 years. And if you take some of the path-breaking initiatives, because I'm dealing with 6 or 7 departments this morning when I was coming here, I thought, let me try to recall each of the departments. In space, of course, it hardly needs to be told, it's a story in itself, the unlocking of space as was reported by the media. It worked behind a veil of secrecy. 3 years back, it was thrown open. We have more than 130 startups. We are generating space economy to the tune that 220 million euros have been earned from European satellites launching, and as many as 56 or 57 million dollars earned from launching of American satellites. What an immense pride. We started off when America was about to land a human being on the surface of moon. We were singing Chanda Mama. Today, we are asking them to pay us for the services we are rendering. So we have actually risen ourselves. And this happened because the taboos of the past were broken up. The atomic energy, everybody thought some kind of an atom bomb happening inside. Today, atomic energy has become a means of increasing shelf life. We are carrying apple from Kashmir to all parts of, all the mandis across India. And the academics of it, the Tata Memorial has suddenly found its satellite hospitals all across, far off in Guwahati, Northeast, Mohali, Punjab, Uttarakhand, Bihar. And I think the true vindication of what Homi Baba said, when he said our atomic energy, nuclear energy program is dedicated to peaceful purposes, and the whole world refused to trust him. They said he was trying to camouflage the atomic activity inside. Today, it is vindicated. We have actually translated it for applications which are closer to life. Similarly, deep sea mission, of course, I've already mentioned as far as the earth science is concerned. CSIR, the Roma mission, the Purple Revolution, adding value to the startup movement by giving it what the component is known as the agri-tech startup, because somehow it had already stuck in our mind that startup means IT. Because the wave started from Bengaluru, the hub of IT, without realizing that our most vast resource of startup lies in the Himalayas. It doesn't require an IT background, doesn't even require a science graduation. And it has now picked up. I was glad only yesterday, Uttarakhand Chief Minister himself went out of the way to promote it after it's been already taken up by Jammu. So we are actually contributing to the value addition of the startup movement of India. The autonomous vehicles, the waste to wealth, the drone, all these coming from CSIR. DST working in a host of areas, including the artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence being used not only in the IT sector, but also in the personnel management, to decipher, to analyze the corruption cases. Can you imagine how much of potential was waiting to happen? It has happened in the last few years, because unless we say, we would not realize. And of course, the Department of Biotechnology is a story in itself, which the world is celebrating. Today only there is a write-up in the Hindustan Times. India's vaccine yatra is actually a case study in itself. Now, if in 2 years we could come up with 4 vaccines, we could come up with the first ever DNA vaccine, we could come up with the first ever nasal vaccine, this does not mean that we started off only after the pandemic happened. It means that we were already there, just like waiting, on the lines to begin the marathon. But the referee was not pointing out the signal, the flag to run off. The moment the pandemic happened, the Prime Minister asked us to take off. You see what wonders have happened. In a country where preventive health care was least talked about, least known about, became an example or role model for the other countries. And we were not only developing vaccines, also providing to the other countries. And today, as was being mentioned by the PSA, when we thought of this theme for National Science Day this year, 2023, global science for global well-being, it was not simply to flatter ourselves or to be boisterous or to be self-righteous. I was trying to sum up the content of what has happened in the last. Today, actually, we are making the world realize the various facets of global well-being. You saw in those 2 years of pandemic, the Western practitioners of medicine who looked at indigenous systems or Indian systems with contempt were making frantic calls कि कोई booster है तो दीजिए. And this integrated holistic management has been accepted. And therefore, global well-being, global science for global well-being, and it makes one proud to see that this globalization of science has to an extent begun from India, though we started off late. And therefore today, before I conclude, I would make you realize that the world is looking up to us. And is looking up to us because we have vindicated ourselves. We have vindicated ourselves with definite markers. In the Global Innovation Index, we have jumped from 81 to 40, all in the recent 3, 4, 5 years. In the publications, we have jumped from 6 to 3. In the startup ecosystem, we have emerged number 3. But I said in 2015, when the call was made for Startup India, nobody understood whether it was meant to be started up or meant to be stood up. And therefore, the world is ready to be led by India. And the question is, are we ready to lead? Seeing the confidence of these bright brains sitting in this room, I dare take and gather the courage to say, yes, we are ready. We are ready to take the challenge. We are ready to avail of the opportunity. And today, on the occasion of National Science Day, we take the first step by significantly and also symbolically launching the Vaibhav Fellowship scheme for the Indian diaspora abroad, our bright, young, and not so young scientific minds abroad, to be encouraged, to be promoted, to be motivated, to collaborate with the domestic brains over here for a much, much more wholesome growth. And this Vaibhav stands for Vaishvik Bharatiya Vigyanik. Vaishvik hokar ke bhi Bharatiya. So global perspective for the cause of India. Being again collaborated with what remains to be Indian. And from here, we move on to embark on the journey of next 25 years. And I have the confidence to say, those of us who are around at that time, 25 years hence, will realize that India's scientific prowess will determine India's future economy and will also determine the contours of the face of India as it appears in the year 2047. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again.